That dark, wet strip beside the house is not a dead zone. It is a very specific habitat. In the Pacific Northwest, the hardest yards are often the north wall, the space under conifers, or the low corner that stays spongy after every week of rain. Most garden flowers fail there because they were bred for sun and drainage. Native woodland and streamside flowers evolved with soaked soil, filtered light, and long, damp springs. This list has 11 native flowers that can turn that problem corner into the prettiest part of the yard, with a surprising showstopper at number 8 and 3 final choices that spread into living ground covers. Think of this planting bed as a miniature forest floor, not a regular flower border. Pacific Northwest woodland natives expect acidic soil loaded with decaying leaves, roots, and wood. They are built for weak winter sun, long rainy seasons, and a summer pattern where the surface may dry while the deeper soil stays cool. That moisture detail matters. Some of the plants in this list can handle genuinely damp shade near downspouts or seepage. Others love the rainy season wet, then either want occasional summer water or quietly go dormant in dry shade. Matching that habit to the spot is what makes the planting look intentional instead of patchy. Set them up with about 2 inches of leaf mulch or composted wood chips each year, and skip digging in rich fertilizer. Buy nursery propagated plants, especially woodland species, because plants dug from the wild recover slowly. We will build the list like a real shady bed. Mid-height bloomers first for spring color, taller anchors in the middle for structure, then low spreaders at the end to knit the soil into a living carpet. Start with Pacific Bleeding Heart, Dicentra formosa, the middle layer plant that makes a wet shade bed look full before most perennials wake up. It is hardy in zones 4 through 8, usually about 1 to 2 feet tall, and prefers part shade to full shade with consistently moist, humus-rich soil. The foliage is soft and ferny, so it fills space without looking heavy. Above it hang pink, heart-shaped flowers, sometimes from late winter or early spring, and often continuing into summer where moisture holds. Hummingbirds visit those dangling blooms, which makes this plant more than just pretty filler. This is the native Pacific bleeding heart, not the larger Asian garden bleeding heart many people know from old cottage borders. Place it through the middle of a woodland bed and let it spread gently between shrubs and taller perennials. If it disappears in dry shade by summer, do not panic. Dormancy is normal. Where the bed opens toward brighter woodland edges, add Western Columbine, Aquilegia formosa, for height without heaviness. It is hardy in zones 3 through 8, grows about 2 to 4 feet tall, and does best in part shade or cool sun with moist, well-drained soil that never stays waterlogged. Its flowers are easy to recognize, nodding red and yellow blooms with long spurs held on slender stems from late spring through summer. That shape is built for hummingbirds, and they often work the flowers while butterflies make shorter visits. Use Western Columbine as an airy accent among ferns, bleeding heart, or native shrubs, especially where dappled shade shifts into morning light. If it is happy, it can self-sow lightly, creating scattered vertical movement instead of a dense clump. In a wet shade planting, it is the color that lifts the whole edge. In the deeper woodland pockets, Western Trillium, Trillium ovatum, gives the shade garden its true spring signal. It is hardy in zones 5 through 8, usually grows 1 to 1.5 feet tall, and prefers part to full shade in moist, rich soil with plenty of leaf mold. The flower is unmistakable. 3 broad white petals held above 3 green leaves, often aging to soft pink as the bloom matures. It appears early, before the tree canopy fully fills in, so it can use that brief window of spring light on the forest floor. Treat it like the spring ephemeral it is. Western Trillium emerges, flowers, sets seed, and then gradually fades back as the season moves on. Buy only nursery-propagated plants, never wild-dug Trillium, and once it is planted, leave the crown undisturbed so the clump can settle in for years. For the damp edges where Trillium is too tall or too slow to spread, Stream Violet, Viola glabella, works like a bright, living seam. It is hardy in zones 4 through 8, stays about 4 to 12 inches tall, and grows in part shade to full shade where soil remains moist, even wet. Its early flowers are clear yellow, so they show up strongly beside dark mulch, wet leaves, mossy stones, and shaded path edges. Because it blooms when many insects are just waking up. It offers early food for emerging native bees, and its leaves support fritillary butterfly caterpillars. Use stream violet along damp, shady paths, low bed edges, stream banks, or any wet margin where a cheerful ground cover can be allowed to spread. Give it consistent moisture, and it can knit small bare patches into a soft, pollinator-friendly carpet. Where stream violet hugs the ground, fringe cup, Telema grandiflora, rises into the next layer. This native perennial is hardy in zones 4 through 9, usually reaches 1.5 to 2.5 feet tall, and is happiest in part shade to full shade with moist soil. Its flower stems stand like narrow wands, carrying many small bell-shaped blooms with fringed edges. They often open in greenish tones and age toward pink, giving the plant quiet color without shouting over ferns, violets, or woodland sedges. In mild Pacific Northwest winters, the foliage can stay semi-evergreen, so it leaves something useful in the bed after bloom season. Use fringe cup as a low-fuss middle layer filler under shrubs, along shady paths, or between bolder natives. It feeds early pollinators, reseeds politely, and fills damp shade without needing constant division, staking, or special attention. Foam flower, Tyrella trifoliata, takes that woodland layering down to the neat front edge. It is hardy in zones 4 through 9, usually stays around 1 foot tall, and prefers part shade to full shade in moist, rich soil. In spring, it sends up airy spikes of tiny white, starry flowers above tidy clumps of foliage. The leaves give the bed structure after the bloom fades, so it works well where taller shade plants need a softer edge instead of bare mulch. Place foam flower along paths, near the front of a shade border, or between ferns and low ground covers in damp woodland soil. Its small blossoms are useful to small native bees and other little pollinators that keep working in shaded beds, especially where larger, showier flowers are scarce. Behind a low edge like foam flower, false Solomon seal, Myanthemum racemosum, gives a shady bed height without looking heavy. It is hardy in zones 3 through 8, usually reaches 2 to 3 feet tall, and does best in part shade to full shade with moist, rich soil. In spring, its arching stems carry plumes of tiny, fragrant, creamy white flowers at the tips, instead of dangling blooms under the leaves. That upright plume is one easy way to tell native false Solomon seal apart from the commonly planted Asian ornamental Solomon seal. After flowering, the plant keeps earning its space. By late summer, the flower clusters ripen into red berries that birds will use, so it supports the garden beyond the bloom window. Give it room in the middle or back of a damp woodland planting, where its rhizomes can slowly form graceful colonies rather than being squeezed into a tight gap. If that damp woodland bed needs one plant with real height, choose goat's beard, Aruncus dioicos. This native perennial is hardy in zones 3 through 8, grows about 4 to 6 feet tall, and is happiest in part shade with moist to wet soil. In early summer, goat's beard sends up huge, creamy white plumes that look a lot like oversized astilbe flowers, but on a larger, looser, more natural frame. Those plumes catch light in a dark corner and give the bed a strong vertical shape without needing bright sun. The flowers are not just decorative. Many small native bees, hoverflies, and other beneficial insects work through the tiny blooms, so the plant turns a shady, wet spot into a useful feeding station. Place goat's beard at the back of the bed, where its size becomes an anchor instead of a problem. It is especially valuable in damp soil where ordinary border perennials sulk, rot, or simply never gain momentum. Now drop from goat's beard's tall plumes to the forest floor, where wild ginger, Asarum caudatum, quietly fills the darkest spaces. It is hardy in zones 4 through 8, stays about 6 inches tall, and prefers full shade to deep shade with consistently moist soil. Its glossy, heart-shaped evergreen leaves overlap into a low carpet, giving bare ground a finished look even when nothing is in bloom. The flowers are easy to miss. Small maroon blooms tucked at ground level, where small ground insects help with pollination. Brush the foliage, and you also get that subtle aromatic quality that makes the plant feel very woodland and alive. Use wild ginger under shrubs, beneath conifers, along shaded paths, or in damp corners where showier flowers are hard to establish. Once it settles in, it becomes a handsome, weed-smothering ground cover for places that rarely see direct sun. For the deepest, dampest conifer shade, redwood sorrel, Oxalis oregana, gives you a living woodland mat without asking for sun. It is best in zones 7 through 9, usually stays 4 to 8 inches tall, and wants full shade to deep shade with moist, leafy soil. The leaves look like soft green clover, spreading in a low, even layer around roots and fallen needles. In spring, delicate pink to white flowers rise just above the foliage, small but bright enough to catch the eye at path edges or beside mossy logs. Its giveaway trait is movement. In bright light, the leaflets fold downward to protect themselves, which is your clue that this is not a sun ground cover. Plant it under conifers, in cool, damp pockets, or on the shaded side of woodland beds, and keep it within that Pacific Northwest comfort zone. Pacific starflower is the plant you notice after the bold leaves are already in place. Lysomachia latifolia, formerly Trientalis latifolia, is a small native for zones 6 through 9, usually only 4 to 8 inches tall, and it thrives in part shade to full shade with consistently moist soil. In early summer, slender stems lift pink-white, star-shaped flowers above a neat whirl of leaves. The flowers are dainty, but they are still useful to small native bees working through the shaded understory, where every bloom adds a little more habitat. Use Pacific starflower as a fine-textured woodland ground cover between ferns, sedges, shrubs, and taller perennials. It visually connects those bigger plants so the bed feels grown together over time, rather than arranged one plant at a time. Put these plants together as layers: goat's beard and false Solomon's seal in back, bleeding heart, columbine, and fringe cup through the middle. Then wild ginger, redwood sorrel, foam flower, violet, and starflower near the ground. Mulch yearly with leaf litter or composted wood chips, and buy nursery-propagated natives from local native plant nurseries. Thanks for watching. Write a comment. What is growing in your shadiest, soggiest corner right now? Subscribe for regional follow-ups, including natives for dry shade and Northwest rain garden plants.